Hey, Wellness Warriors. Welcome to the Wellness Revolution. I'm your host, Dr. Milen Riobe. For those who don't know me, I'm a board-certified medical doctor specializing in the fields of integrative medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and OBGYN. I'm the founder and CEO of Awakened Wellness, an organization that I founded to help professionals, business owners, and corporations resolve and prevent burnout. The reason I chose burnout as a special area of focus is because I believe that it's a slippery slope, not just to discontent in the workplace or in your career, or perhaps even to mental health disorders, but a slippery slope to many of the chronic diseases that we face today. I found after I started my private practice years ago that most people who came into my practice were complaining of fatigue and exhaustion. And back then we weren't calling it burnout necessarily, but that's what it was. And what I realized through my studies of traditional Chinese medicine is that fatigue is a doorway to other diseases. This is an indirect path they teach us through the understanding of what they call spleen qi. So burnout is not what we think it is. It's not a workplace situation. It's an inside the body situation. And if we don't correct the metabolic disturbances that are leading to the burnout symptoms, we can become sick. So I like to talk about some of the triggers of burnout. And today we're going to talk about toxic positivity. And for those who do know me, they know that I have a special place in my heart for millennials and Gen Z. I'm the mother of two amazing Gen Zers, and many of my clients, since I've moved back home to New York City, belong to those two generations. So while I work with a very wide array of people, they just hold a special place in my heart. One of the reasons that they hold that special place is because they are so holistically minded. So we don't really have to convince Gen Z and millennials that they should be looking at a more holistic strategy for their health. They already know. So they're already seeking for the root causes of why they don't feel well or for the root causes of what might cause medical conditions that they're trying to avoid. The issue is, of course, that there's so much information out here that finding trusted sources and knowing what to apply for yourself becomes extremely confusing. And so I hope that this podcast will help diffuse some of that confusion and lead to clarity on your journey to well-being. So toxic positivity is something that I see exhibited quite a bit in the younger generations that I work with through no fault of their own, right? We talk about needing to live a high vibration lifestyle. We talk about that positivity is really the most important mindset and mood that we need to be in order to achieve our goals, in order to enjoy our lives. Trying to find our way down that path can be quite challenging. And of course, it's not isolated to those two generations. We all have been in this boat. For me personally, it came when my partner passed away unexpectedly a little over 10 years ago. I found myself needing to be very positive when I didn't want to be positive at all, right? I wanted to just burst into tears and go crawl into a corner in the fetal position, but I had to go to work, right? And at home, I had my two kids that I needed to be positive for, right? I didn't want to be dragging them down with me in my grief. And so I kind of postponed my grief for probably 5 years or more, just trying to be positive because I was a solopreneur at the time. I had my own holistic medical practice. And so I was needing to be at work every day. I was needing to be there for my clients. When I was at home, again, I was needing to be there for my kids. And so I knew firsthand what toxic positivity was. And I even knew that I was doing it, although sometimes I didn't know, right? Sometimes you think that it's the better thing to do so that you can kind of survive the day to make it to the next day. And then when that starts to add up over time and you start to feel the exhaustion setting in and you start to feel a little bit of volcanic eruptions wanting to come up because you're so busy suppressing those emotions because you need to be who you are in the world, that it does become toxic. And so for me, I had to really start to kind of step back and not work as much. I needed to take more time off. I needed to sleep more. I needed to continue with my therapy. I needed to do a lot of the spiritual work that I had already been doing, but I really needed to kind of put that on steroids and really focus on myself more until I was able to kind of catch myself in those moments and be different in the world. And then eventually, as I allowed the grief to run its processes. We have those 5 stages that we go through, and I was able to be genuinely happy and genuinely positive again. And for me, for people who know me, I'm a pretty positive, happy person in general. Although I have my moments like everybody else, we have the frustrations of the day, right? I had to take an extra hour to get my computer set up for my podcast today because the Bluetooth suddenly stopped working. So there are always frustrations, there are always things that pop up. But generally speaking, pretty happy go lucky kind of person. It was unusual for me to be pretending to be happy when I wasn't. And so it took a lot of spiritual work. It took a lot of stillness, other strategies, taking care of myself physically, making sure that I knew what my metabolic demands were. I had to apply my own dynamic metabolic type, which is a temperature neutral deficient dynamic metabolic type, to my 4 pillars of wellness. So I had to really be cautious about how I was eating, how I was sleeping, how much sleep I was getting, when I was going to sleep. All of these things about if my body was properly detoxing, eliminating toxins, had to stay active, had to do all the things, and that took time. Finally, I reached that critical threshold where I could find that joy again, and it wasn't that I was pretending to be happy. It was a genuine happiness that I got back that I was able to then be authentically present again. And so toxic positivity doesn't always have to show up in things that are so obvious as losing someone that you love. It can be a social pressure to be a certain way because perhaps you're in a service industry. Perhaps you need to be on for work all the time. And maybe you do have little kids that you don't want to present yourself in a certain way in front of, right? We all want to be role models for our children. And so sometimes toxic positivity is something we do to try to elevate our mood in front of our children so that they get the sense of what being positive is about. But kids have a BS meter and they know when people are not really feeling positive in their presence. My kids were expert at that too. It's really important to begin to identify when we're in a toxic positivity state so we can all have various reasons why we feel like we need to pretend to be upbeat when maybe we're not. Maybe we're exhausted, but we need to be positive because maybe you're a tour guide, maybe you're running a travel agency, or you're a physician like me or an attorney, and you're face to face with clients every day. So, what is toxic positivity? I just gave you several examples, including one of my own. But toxic positivity is when we overgeneralize or we extend the mood of being happy more than we genuinely feel. And so there's a mismatch between our outer appearance to the world and how we feel on the inside. And it's a minimalization of how we feel on the inside. We tend to perhaps numb our emotions or dismiss them, or again, minimize them and make our inner emotions feel less important than how we're presenting ourselves in the world. Now, you can see, of course, how that can cause a split, right? You're one way on the outside, another way on the inside, like an Oreo cookie or something, right? And that poses a lot of stress because you're not fully present and living as one being, right? You have one being on the inside that might be angry, afraid, grieving, and then you have another being on the outside that's, happy-go-lucky and positive. And so you're literally splitting your energy in 2 different directions, and you're going against your metabolism, right? Your metabolism wants to be one unified thing. So you have one part of you that's in a fear-based state on the inside, and another part of you that's also in a fear-based state because not being genuinely happy and presenting that face is also a fear-based thing, but the vibes are different. And so, again, you are splitting yourself. And when you don't have your energy mobilizing in one singular direction and you may have them split apart, that puts a lot of friction on your body. That sets off the fight or flight responses, that sets off the chronic stress triggers. And of course, again, for those of you that have listened to my other podcasts, that's the slippery slope to burnout, right? So I was getting exhausted because I'm one person over here and I'm another person over here 10 years ago. And so I very quickly burnt myself out And it was through the exhaustion and brain fog and everything else that came with it that I finally was like, okay, uncle, I have to do something different. So the split means that I feel a certain way, but I'm not going to process that. I'm going to bury it a little bit deeper. And instead, I'm going to cover it with this other thing. So then that emotion kind of stays stuck and trapped. It doesn't get diffused. It doesn't get kind of transformed back into a neutral state, right? Emotions aren't supposed to stick with us. They're supposed to flow through. So sometimes we can't avoid things, right? Like a sudden death of someone that you love, right? In my case, you can't avoid that, right? So that's an emotion that comes in. It comes in unexpectedly, shockingly, and it sticks, right? And if you don't process that, it's going to stay and it's going to fester, right? And that's how, again, you get exhausted because now your body has this energy in it that it's not processing that's in the way. It's obstructive, right? You're not able to really perform all your normal processes if you have this stuck energy within your energy fields. We don't process the anger, the grief, the sadness, the fears. And again, when I say process them, I don't mean intellectualize them to try to understand them. I mean to just let them express and dissolve. And we'll talk about how to do that later on in the podcast. So again, you don't want to hyper focus. You don't necessarily want to involve your brain so much as you want to involve your heart and actually feeling those emotions. When you're in toxic positivity, you're not processing the emotions. Now, of course, granted, if we were all to start sobbing in the middle of our workplaces every day, clearly we wouldn't, or A, we wouldn't be in that job very long. B, people would lose, trust in us. And C, we'd probably lose our businesses, right? So it's not a matter of whatever I feel, I'm going to express it in this moment. But if you can't express it in that moment, as soon as you have the opportunity to be still, it's important that you take that opportunity and again process that emotion so that you can diffuse it, you can experience it, let it come through and leave, right? And be transformed, so to speak. So it's not stuck and trapped within you. So there's a balance, right? You want to make sure that, yes, as a physician, and people are relying on me to have, of course, a professional demeanor that I maintain at all times, and compassion and trust, right? So I present that because that is who I am. But if something happens and I still have to go to work, I have to turn that off, right? I have to say, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that I have this thing going on where I don't feel well or feel a bit emotionally unbalanced. I'm going to park it for now because I'm going to be completely focused in my work right now so that I can be fully present with the person that I'm with, fully present in managing their care, fully present in executing their treatment plans. Then when I get home, right, I get to then process. Maybe it's during lunch, right? I'm having my double espresso at lunch and I'm processing this emotion so that again it gets diffused so it's not festering. The quicker we can process emotions and let them pass through us, the smoother our metabolism because we don't have all these obstructions. When stuck emotions are obstructions to metabolism, we're not just physical beings. We talk about physiology a lot, but what informs our physiology is non-physical. So the mind is not a physical structure. The mind informs the brain. So the brain is the physical structure, the mind is not. And so when there are imbalanced emotions in the system, it's very difficult for the mind to be fully in charge, right? Because these stuck emotions really do trigger the fear in the brain. And then we get these loops, these vicious circles between the brain and the emotions and the imbalanced processing of those emotions or the festering of those emotions. And then when we keep stuffing them down, right, we either numb ourselves out or, again, we put on this positive face that we're not really feeling in the moment. We minimize ourselves. And if we don't process those emotions and they get stuck, sometimes we will like numb ourselves out, right, so that we don't feel those emotions. So we kind of create an energetic wall around that emotion so that we don't necessarily feel it. It kind of insulates the emotion. So sometimes we'll think it's not there, but it is, right? And you'll feel a bit numb. You'll feel like you can't quite feel the positivity. Like even if you want to feel the positivity, you might feel like, I want to be positive, but I'm not feeling it right now. I'm not, even when I'm doing something fun, something that would bring me joy, I'm not feeling it. And that's how you know that you're kind of numbing yourself out. And that's the first clue that you're building these walls and insulating. Those walls also hide your physical symptoms, those early warning signs of burnout like fatigue, anxiety, and also irritability, mood swings, things like that, right? So when we're too numb, we won't notice those early signs and they will get worse. So it's only at the point of, say, exhaustion that you might notice that something's not right. So again, processing the emotions allows you to be very connected with yourself so that you hear those early warning signs or you feel those early warning signs. So again, this is a matter of allowing yourself to feel the emotions, not processing them, not intellectualizing them, not asking necessarily, why am I feeling this way? Or what do I need to do to get rid of this? Or why do I have this at all? But just sitting with it and letting it just be there. And if you need to cry, cry. If you need to go, boxing somewhere and punch a boxing bag for a while, do that. If you need to go for a run, do that. You can also physically express the emotion so that it's not stuck, but allow yourself to feel it. That's really the most important thing. And you may have to do that under the care of a therapist so that you're not doing this on your own, especially if you have traumatic past experiences, PTSD, or significant mental health disorders. You don't want to necessarily be processing your emotions alone. You may need some significant guidance for that. One of the other signs of toxic positivity is overachieving, the need for perfection, perfectionism, where we're giving the outward appearance that all is well. We achieved the goal, we got the raise, we got the promotion, whatever the case might be, as a sign that, okay, I must be excelling in the world. This positivity thing must be working for me because I did this, this, and this. I checked off the boxes. Again, sometimes these can be signs of toxic positivity that we want to really just be mindful about. Yes, of course, you want to achieve your goals, but make sure that you're also achieving the goal of being very in touch with your inner world. And this is where we hear the adage, money can't buy you happiness, right? It can if the internal world is also in sync with how you're manifesting on the external world. Another sign can be like if you feel guilty about not being positive, if you feel that not being positive is a bad thing or reflects poorly on you. This is a sign that you've been indoctrinated or socialized to be in toxic positivity. And even in some spiritual circles, if you're not in touch with yourself, you can kind of get lost in the high vibration and meditation and the other techniques that we may use in spiritual circles. So again, you want to always make sure that you're checking in with your heart. Your heart always knows how you feel, truly feel. And then once you kind of get those walls out of the way, right, you process the emotions that are blocking your ability to truly feel your heart. Once your heart starts to actually shine through those walls because you're able to process those emotions and let them go, then you can feel that genuine joy that does come from the heart. And it's not something that you've projected outward trying to feel more positive. It's actually something that comes from within yourself that is just radiating outward. So that's how we know that we're being like genuinely positive, is if it's really coming from in here and it's not something you're kind of throwing out there almost as a decoy for people to see that you feel a certain way when really you don't want them to see how you feel on the inside. So how do we begin to dissolve these walls, right? We already talked a little bit about that, right? One way, of course, is to feel it, name it without intellectualizing it, right? You can say, hey, I feel sad right now, right? Or you can say, I feel really angry right now. Or I feel fearful right now. And that doesn't mean that you're going to multiply it. Sometimes we get caught up in saying, well, if I claim it, then it's going to happen to me, right? And I'm going to perpetuate it. But that's only if you're doing it out of fear and you're feeling fearful about the emotion, then yes, you're going to kind of create this vicious circle where it keeps coming back. It comes back because it wants you to heal it. It comes back because it can't fester. So it's always going to keep tapping you on the shoulder to take a look, take a peek, to see what's going on. So it's important to name the emotion, feel the emotion with confidence and just in a neutral but not numb position. Be still with yourself, take some good, nice, deep breaths, and really just ask, how am I feeling? How am I really feeling? And just listen to the still voice within you, not your brain, but the still voice that's coming from your heart, from your mind. Listen to your mind, not necessarily your brain. It will tell you, right? Okay, we've got this sadness to process. We've got this fear to process. We've got this anger over here to process. And then, literally, one by one, as they pop into your mind, you can just be with them. You can even ask, like, hey, what do you have to say to me? And have a bit of an internal conversation with your mind. It'll tell you something. It'll show you something. You might get an image of something that you get to let go of, right? It might be something from when you were like 5, you know, quick glimpse of something, or it could be something from 5 minutes ago. Whatever it is, you get to kind of sit with it and feel it, like, oh, how did that make me feel? This interaction that I had 5 minutes ago. And it might be, yeah, it made me feel angry. It made me feel sad. It made me feel disrespected, perhaps. And you get to just be with that and you get to let it just melt away, right? As soon as you name it and you sit with it and you just listen to it, you're not having a conversation with it so that you're not telling yourself a story about it. You're just kind of getting glimpses of images or words, and you're just listening. You're just kind of hearing and you're breathing through. So you're taking your nice deep breaths as you're having the experience of what your mind is telling you without involving your brain. And if your brain gets involved, it's okay. You just catch yourself and then recenter yourself, right? Take some deep breaths and really take them deep into your lungs so that you calm the brain. So remember taking that deep breath for a few minutes. If you do the heart math breathing for 3 minutes, you're going to activate the calm side of your brain. You're going to turn down the kind of storytelling side of your brain, telling you, like, yeah, but she did this to me and she did that to me and that was wrong and I should be mad. And that's the part you're not quite wanting to have the conversation with, right? You're having the conversation with the part of you that's saying, that really made me feel sad, or that really made me angry, what she said. Not necessarily judging it, but just hearing yourself, hearing what your body and mind is telling you about the experience. And then it will dissipate. It just wants to be heard. It just wants to be expressed in that way. Not the story, not the loops with the brain, but expressed through the heart. Let the heart transform it. Let the heart transmute it, right? Everything is energy. So if it's this stuck, dense energy, letting it express means that you're allowing it to expand and raise its vibration so that it's no longer that stuck energy. And that's how you kind of just let it go. Now, they may not be the only layer of it to let go. There might be another layer that comes up, and allow that to come up. And then you just do this work periodically on a daily basis until you feel neutral again, not numb. It's very easy to confuse numb and neutral, right? You want to be able to feel your emotions, not feel that they're being dampened. So neutral means, yes, I'm flexible, I'm adaptable. If something happens that makes me angry, I can feel the anger. If something happens that makes me happy, I can feel the joy. Numbness is, I don't feel anything no matter what, right? Or I'm just going to stay in this anger mode and I'm not going to feel anything beyond that. So we want to very carefully distinguish between the two. What helps us to distinguish is the feeling. We have to be able to feel it. If you can't feel it, then you're intellectualizing it. And that's one quick way to know. And if you're having trouble feeling it, continue to just be still. And again, you might need a therapist to really help you to get deeper down into where you can feel those emotions. And it won't be easy. It's okay to acknowledge that it's challenging. It's okay to acknowledge that this is not easy and I don't necessarily want to be here doing this thing, but I'm going to let it happen anyway. It's a bit of a surrender. It's okay, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be still and I'm going to allow whatever to come up that needs to come up. And then I'm going to allow it to express and dissipate, and then we get to process the next layer. And then again, if you're doing your heart math breathing and your meditation and you're taking care of the body, you're applying your dynamic metabolic type to your 4 pillars, the physiology of your body should be able to really support that so that as new experiences are coming, right? Because they don't stop coming just because you're trying to process the old ones, right? As the new ones are coming, you're processing them differently to begin with so that they don't get stuck the same way that the ones that you didn't know how to process years ago got stuck. So you want to do both, right? You want to make sure that you're doing the work that's going to allow you to process stress differently, to allow your brain to perceive the stress in a different way where it doesn't get knotted up and balled up the same way. And then eventually you will catch up, right? Eventually it'll be coming in much smoother and then you'll be able to dissipate and let go of things. Things won't bother you as much. You won't feel like you're needing to be toxically positive all the time because you won't have as much suppressed and stuffed down that's disconnecting you from your true positivity. Other ways to kind of let it out are journaling. Ho'oponopono is another really great strategy. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Those 4 phrases have been shown to be very effective for letting go, like self-forgiveness, forgiveness of others, right? And again, they say we don't forgive for other people, we forgive for ourselves. When you don't forgive other people for things that they do that you found harmful, that emotion is stuck in you, not them. So when we forgive, we are unknotting the emotion that got stuck in ourselves. So when we forgive others, we're really loosening the knotted emotions that we experience through the interaction. And so this is why forgiveness is so important. Another technique is to make sure that you're not doing just positive affirmations without really looking at what's underneath them. Validate if you don't feel well. Validate if you're feeling sad for some reason. Validate if you're feeling angry for some reason. Don't just skip to, yeah, I feel this way, but I should feel this way, so I'm going to affirm that I feel joy without processing that anger because it's going to be like a rubber band. It's just going to snap you back. There's no way that you can just skip to the front of the line and not process all those emotions and just be positive, right? This is why a lot of people say that affirmations don't work for them and in fact make them feel worse. It's because you can't jump from here to there. You really have to process what's going on the inside so that it's not inhibiting you from feeling what's already inside of you. So no matter who you are in the world, no matter what you're doing in the world, your true emotion is joy, right? Love is the only true emotion. And so anything that's not that is the distortion of love. So it's those distortions that we're cleaning up. It's those distortions that we're unwinding, so to speak, or unknotting. So once we've unknotted enough of them, the reality of what we really are comes out. The reality of what we really are starts to shine through. Then it's not a leap and a jump to make an affirmation that's positive. It's actually you're making it from the inside of yourself, and it's just naturally radiating outward. When I read the book A Course in Miracles, they talked a lot about projection versus extension. And they made a big deal out of making sure that we understood the differences, right? When you're extending, you are putting what is already within you outward. When you're projecting, you're pushing what's within you to the side and you're just kind of throwing something out there. And that's not a genuine way to manifest in the world. And so this is where we run into trouble. The second to last piece I'll talk about is making sure that your body is in good physiological condition. So while we're talking about emotions that are energy, they produce physiological changes in the body. So we can't really tease them away from the physical aspect of ourselves. So again, when I say mental health is not mental, it's because the mental aspect is in the brain, which is part of the body. But there is energy. The mind is an energetic field. The brain is a physical field. And you can't really quite separate them because the mind flows through the entire body. So within the physical structures is still energy producing the appearance of those physical structures. And so the energy permeates everywhere and everything. And so emotions then permeate the physicality of the body and will change its physiology. So making sure that the body is physiologically sound, metabolically sound, is really important to begin to process those emotions. Because if the body is in a weakened metabolic state, or if it's too inflamed and toxic, it becomes that much more challenging to unknot the emotions. So making sure that you're coming at it from both aspects, making sure that you're eating for your dynamic metabolic type, you're resting, you're moving, you're detoxing properly, your body's own natural detoxification systems are functioning optimally, is extremely important for emotional processing. And then expressing the emotion, right? So some people think, well, it's not safe for me to be vulnerable and sad or to express my anger in the world, right? There's a place for every emotion. Now, of course, you want to make sure that you're doing it in a respectful way that is not endangering anyone. But sometimes anger is appropriate. Sometimes anger is the emotion that keeps us safe in a very dangerous situation. Not all anger is bad. In fact, anger can give you a lot of clarity. Anger can give you emotional release of the energy. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you put anyone else in danger. That doesn't mean that you traumatize anyone else, right? You can show your anger in private. You can show your anger when no one else is around. Or you can take boxing lessons and do physical activities that will channel the anger out. So emotions are healthy. Like of course, we have been socialized to think that showing emotion is not good, right? We've been socialized to think that walking around like robots is the way that we're supposed to interact in the world. And we have found out the hard way that that is not a great way to be. And so it's always about balance. If you have a therapist to help you process the emotions appropriately or to feel them, to learn how to feel the emotions, to learn that it's actually safe to express emotions and how to safely and respectfully express them. You can be angry without screaming and yelling. You can be angry without violence. And so as a society, it's really important that we begin to learn how to properly express emotion so that we're being honest, not just with ourselves, but with the people that we're interacting with. And through this honesty within ourselves and with the people that we interact with, again, we allow our true and genuine emotion, which is love, to actually shine through the conversation and be what presents itself into the world. Crying, too. Crying is a nice, healthy thing to do if it's appropriate. So when we cry, we're actually detoxing. So it's the removal of toxins from emotional overwhelm. We can study and see that stress hormones are in our tears. And so crying is a means by which we can level our emotions, we can let them out. And so not crying when you feel like crying can lead to emotional dysregulation and burnout. So if you need to have a good cry, have a good cry. If you need to express anger, express your anger in a way that is respectful and again, not violating anyone else's boundaries. And then my final tip for the day is something that is called emotional freedom technique. Emotional freedom technique is a technique that was developed by an engineer called Gary Craig in the 1990s. He refined a previously existing, more complex method, simplifying it and making it a very effective tool to release stuck energy in the body. It's been really well studied. Been over 100 studies done on thousands of people showing how valid and useful EFT techniques are for emotional release. It's been studied for anxiety and several other mood disorders and shown to be of great benefit. In fact, for anxiety, it was shown to be 90% effective when it was combined with cognitive behavioral therapy, compared to a 63% effectiveness rate for cognitive behavioral therapy alone. And so when it was combined with therapy, it was so much more effective than just therapy alone. And so if you'd like to get a free guide, PDF on emotional freedom technique, comment below EFT and we'll send you a copy. Just a quick rundown here. It involves tapping on acupuncture points while saying certain phrases. So next time you feel really overwhelmed and you're in a place where you can't go and do all the things we just talked about, one quick and easy thing you can do is a short version of EFT, or emotional freedom technique, where you just tap the side of your hand for about 30 seconds while saying to yourself, even though I feel, and you insert the emotion. So if you're feeling angry, even though I feel angry right now, I deeply and profoundly accept myself. And you repeat that, and you tap on the side of your hand here for about 30 seconds, and then you stop. If you have more time, there's a whole rhythm to the acupuncture points that you tap on that involves the head and upper body that's extremely effective for releasing that stuck emotion that you're feeling so that you can process it. And it allows you, as you hear in the sentence that you say, you're admitting what you're feeling, you're naming what you're feeling, and you're allowing it to process. And you're moving it along by tapping on certain areas of your body that help to dislodge the energy and move it out. So the usual sequence of events is you start by tapping your hand and you say the sentence that I said before. Even though I feel angry right now, I deeply and profoundly love and accept myself. And you do that 3 times. And you just repeat. And then for the rest of it, what you're doing is you start by tapping on the crown of your head and you just repeat the word of the emotion that you're trying to get rid of. So anger, right? And then you go here, anger, right? And then sides here, anger. And then here, and you just keep repeating the word that comes to you that you're feeling. And then here, here, and then here, and then lastly, right in here, just at the bottom end of your armpits. And then you repeat it. You can repeat it like 3 times or as many times as you actually need. And then you kind of want to rate yourself after you go through a cycle. Kind of compare. How do I feel now compared to when I started? If you're still feeling it and there's more to let go, you do it again. You do another round. You start over as many times as you need to until you feel better. That means that you have allowed that emotion to kind of move and shake through and dissolve and out. Just like heart math, it triggers the parasympathetic nervous system so that the calming side of the nervous system is activated. And again, it's not bypassing because you're naming what you're feeling and you're allowing it to move through, right? You keep saying it even as you're doing the tapping. So it involves naming it so that you know, okay, I'm present with this emotion. This is how I'm feeling right now. You may want to cry while you're doing that. It's okay. Whatever comes up, let it come up. And if you just need to do that quick, really quick version because you have to run into a meeting or what have you, perfectly fine to do the short version. And then as soon as you have more time, like 5 minutes or so, you do the full version. And it should help you quite a bit to process those emotions. So again, if you'd like a copy of our guide, just comment below EFT and we'll get it to you. So that's our podcast for this week. I hope you found the content to be valuable and quickly applicable in your life. To learn more, please visit our website, awakenwellnessnow.com. If you did find value in today's podcast, I ask you to please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Again, it's coming up at the end of this month. We've got our 7-day burnout challenge. So subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. You can also, if you're an email subscriber, you'll be getting the content as well. So super excited to bring that to you at the end of this month. If you haven't taken our burnout assessment, again, I encourage you to go to awakenwellnessnow.com, take our burnout assessment, and know your dynamic metabolic type so you can get some quick tips and tricks on how to apply it to your 4 pillars of wellness so that you can start beating burnout today. If you'd like to know more about our corporate burnout resolution program, connect with me on LinkedIn and I'll be happy to share our corporate burnout risk assessment tool with you. so that you can begin to apply some burnout resolution tips to your team members and learn more about our programs. So as always, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, many, many blessings.